Dirty Scrap Podcast.
I am pretty happy to have you guys here, and one of the episodes of Dirty Scrap, the Aluminum podcast, and for me, it's very the podcast. The idea of this podcast is to give to the people out there some knowledge about the situation of the market, the history about the people that is getting involved more and more on the recycling side, and I really appreciate that you are making the time to be in this platform. Here is 1 a.m. in the morning. So what time is for you?
Wow.
Man, it's 5. I knew it was 1 o'clock in the morning. I said to Lisa, I think he's in America. He's wild. We could have done other times. We could have done 8 o'clock, like in 3 or 4 hours time comfortably for you. So thank you. Have you got young kids?
Sorry?
Have you got young children?
Oh yeah, I have 2 kids. I have one 5 years old and the other one, I don't know, I think he's almost 2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're not sleeping anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are sleeping and I'm supposed to wake up like in 3 hours and a half to go to the gym. So let's see.
Nice.
Maybe I'm going to be a little bit lazy and I will just, sleep
Look,
a little bit more.
I've been doing the same as you. Like when I'm trying to get meetings with certain people, and then it's like I'll just fit in. I know exactly what you're going through. Like just fit in, make it work for everybody, and
Right.
wake up and have a cup of coffee and see if you can go back to sleep later.
It is what it is. So anyway, the idea is I want to know a little bit more about yourself, right? I know you are in the business of the scrap business for a long time. You've been doing this for several years. I know you went from South Africa to New Zealand, but I want to know more about the history, about yourself, guys, how you build the company that you are working right now. I remember I met you guys at the E3 show a few months ago, and I remember you were like launching your app and doing some simulations. But let's start from the beginning. So tell me about your story, how you end in the point that you are right now.
Yeah, it's a long story. We've been on quite a journey so far. Lisa, do you want to kick us off with where it all began? Back in South Africa.
Sure. So Stuart was born in the early 80s. I'm kidding. Stu started out his career at a scrap metal recycler in Southern Africa. He started out on the tools and the overalls, and kind of worked his way up in the org, and worked pretty much every role one could work in a metal recycling yard, and worked his way up to being one of the executive directors of the company, where they had 85 yards, I think around 4,500 employees. Sound about right, love?
Yeah, 85 yards, 4,200 to 4,500 people. Billions of dollars. Big, really big company. I'd worked at all the different levels, kind of growing through that company. I was in the same company for 18 years, and ended up running the entire company. Well, the metal recycling part of.
For how long you been in that company? Because as far as I know, you jump from like the high school straight forward to the industry, right? So I think you have a lot of knowledge. And one of the things that I like to understand is because here in the US, I think the scrap yard and the foundry industry is very, separate. It's not the same industry. How is that industry in South Africa? How was at that time? Because I think this was like, I don't know how long ago.
Oh, we've been here for 8 or 9 years now. So we're talking almost 10 years ago when we left South Africa. Yeah. So you're asking what the foundries are like and what their relationship is like with the metal recyclers?
Exactly. Yeah, I want to know a little bit better about that part of the world. It's totally different, I can imagine.
Well, it's even more different than you can imagine. So about 12, 13, maybe even 14 years ago, South Africa passed a law which stopped exports out of the country unless you had now had an export permit. In order to get that permit, you had to apply to the government, and they would then, it was a governmental body called ITAC, they would then send out your application to all melters in the country, so any foundries or mills in the country, and if they wanted that material, they could buy it at a 20% to export price discount, right?
Okay.
They were trying to create more jobs, increase the profitability, but actually the sustainability, I guess, of those full foundries and mills in the country. Right. And that happened pretty much, although there were talks about it for a while, it pretty much happened overnight. And it created a lot of upheaval in the industry, both industries, because now
I can imagine
the feeling was all they were doing was taking any funds that were in the metal recycling game and just moving it across to the melters. And the issue there was, if you drop the sales prices for the metal recyclers, we couldn't bring in enough because certain material we were paying really low already. And if we were selling for 20% less, now we couldn't actually draw in enough metal. So certain grades, metal started drying up completely. And the foundries were looking for material, but actually the price was too low to attract that material at source, can you imagine? So there's a lot of street trade, and some people would call hawkers or door trade or retail. There's a lot of that comes in South Africa. And that we were getting less and less because of reduction in sales price. So a lot of companies, including my own when I was there, moved to melting, because now obviously if you could now get it at a 20% discount, well, it made sense for you to be a melter. So the larger metal recyclers in South Africa actually pivoted and moved into melting. So for example, copper foundries, etc., 20% on copper as a margin is it's very lucrative. So that would be the first place you'd look to go to, especially if you had large volumes of copper. So yeah, that was where the company that I was with, that direct.
Right. And talking about your personal history, so you were working on that, let's say, company, and you were creating a lot of experience on the scrap jar and the trading market and everything. But what about you, Lisa? Because what I know is you just jump into the industry not right away as a Stu, right?
Yeah, so I actually started out my career in management consulting in new venture creation at Deloitte. So I would help large companies who are unable to innovate and commercialize business. I would help them disrupt their own business by using, creating new business ventures that would actually often steal their own market share, because if they didn't disrupt themselves, some external challenger would come and disrupt them. And so that's kind of where I cut my teeth in terms of building businesses. And when we moved to New Zealand, Stu at some stage wanted to start his own metal recycling business. And I was like, oh, okay, we'll see about that. And so I actually got stuck into the research, doing some market research and validation to see, well, is there an opportunity for another player in New Zealand? And if so, what does that look like? And I very quickly realized that there is an opportunity here. And so off Stu went and started his metal recycling yard. And I noticed very quickly that he was just on the tools, and he was working very much in the business and not on the business. And I realized that, he's going to need some infrastructure, whether it be for health and safety, for recruiting and onboarding people, marketing, brand, finance, all those kinds of things. And so I thought, well, let me just go help Stu get things going a bit, and then I'll be on my merry way. That lasted 5 or so years, I think. And so, we worked together and built Endless together. And even at the time, I wasn't really sure whether or not that was going to be the end game for me, being in metal recycling. But I actually really enjoyed the industry and saw so much opportunity. And, coming from a background of, I guess, looking at where emerging and disruptive tech meets the changes in consumer behavior and new business models, I thought there's so many exciting opportunities here to really help supercharge this industry. And that's kind of what inspired the idea for Buddy, I guess, is, that technology is such an enabling force, and there's technology doesn't really serve this industry. I think that everybody wins if we find ways to do things more efficiently, more accurately, and just frees people up, I guess, to use their time for, what matters most to them, the highest and best use of their time.
Right. Why New Zealand? Why no another country? Why not, for example, US? That is a huge country. You have a lot of opportunities here. And I mean, on the recycling side, I don't know, 10 years ago should be way different, right? But right now, at this point that everything is going on the green way, recycling is getting more and more important. And why New Zealand?
So what actually happened was, a lot of South Africans do go to the US, Canada, Australia, the UK. I would say those are 4 really popular destinations. And I said to Stuart, instead of picking a country, let's think about the life we want to live. And we wrote down a couple of things that were really important to us. So, for example, we wanted to go somewhere that was safe. I wanted to live near the ocean. We wanted to go somewhere where there wasn't a huge consumerist culture, where there was a relatively equal society, etc. And I looked at a bunch of independent measures of these things that we felt were important to us, and I weighted them. I put them in a spreadsheet, and I said, well, if that's the life we want to live, then we should go to New Zealand. And we hadn't been here before. We didn't know anyone here. And we thought, like, best case scenario, it lives up to all our expectations and we love it. Fabulous. Worst case scenario, we've decided we're leaving South Africa. And so then it will just be an adventure and a stepping stone, and we'll go somewhere else, right? And as it so happens, we love it here. But opportunity is just knocking at the moment. And I guess that's what's taking us on this next adventure to the US. But yeah, it was a very intentional move here, and delivered on all the things that we were hoping it would. So yeah.
But hold on.
I love rugby, so it was quite simple decision for me. I didn't need any spreadsheets to decide.
That's why I was thinking. I mean, you put it on a spreadsheet. How? I mean, for us, like a man, you just go and that's it. Maybe because for me, for example, to move in to another country, I need to be or afraid of the police or afraid of the crime, right? You need to make like a balance on that, and that's it. But to put it on a excellent do it how I mean that means that you have like a very analytical brain, right?
Yeah, I love looking at data and just that whole analytical lens on things. I can't help that I was a management consultant, I guess, and everything I kind of treat as a project, whether it's personal or professional, somehow ends up in a spreadsheet at some stage.
Wow. And how was that transition from the point of view of the personal life and on the business side? Because I think it's a huge step, right? How was it?
Well, I mean, I think
didn't know anybody. I mean, we came here, we didn't know anybody, and we had never visited either. So it was a
Really?
massive
Oh, wow.
step. Yeah, we had never been to New Zealand. It was one of the few places where we considered where we had never been and we didn't know anybody. In fact, it was the only place we were considering where we had never been and didn't know anybody. Plus, the metal recycling industry is really small compared to some of the rest of the world, especially in places where I was being offered roles when we left South Africa. But as we said, like Lisa's spreadsheet was very much about lifestyle and opportunities, and she can go into what the breakdown was of all of them. But it was the toughest decision to make, as in we knew we were in for a hard one. But Lisa's always said, hard choices, easy life. Easy choices, hard life. So we made a really hard choice to have an easier life. Future and it did pay off. We absolutely love New Zealand. It's an amazing country. But when we got you for business as well, I had considered leaving the industry completely when we moved here. I thought I was going to get into sport because there isn't a big industry here. And we had come from, I ran a company that does more than double the volume of the whole country of New Zealand. So there wasn't really in my head, it was like, well, what am I going to do here in comparison? Lisa had obviously been involved with massive projects at Deloitte. So coming here, it was really to consider what our new lifestyle was going to be like. But, I'm sure you've heard before, when you're bitten by the bug in the metal recycling world, it's very difficult to leave. I think I was out of it for 3 or 4 months and I was straight back into it then. And then when Lisa tried it, she hasn't been able to leave it either.
and why you decide to jump back again into the recycling and where, because I can imagine that coming from South Africa, that you have this huge, trade market, and getting into New Zealand that is very small compared to the South Africa, you can see so many gaps that you can fill with, with all the knowledge you have, because at the end, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. What you want is to put some different approaches in order to grow in a different way. So how was that approach from your side?
Well, that's exactly it. Like being here and having been where I was before, I had a different lens from anybody else who had joined the industry. I had sold to some of the biggest buyers around the world, because being the biggest in sub-Saharan Africa, we would sit at the same table as the likes of Sims and EMR, and we were selling to similar markets. We had the same agents in Korea and in India. We were selling through the same people. So when I was here, I could see the opportunity to do the same thing and sell direct, and therefore really be able to incentivize more recycling and pay higher prices and attract more metal to a new company that we were going to build. So that was the opportunity we saw. But then with Lisa's first bit of experience in it, when she joined, all of a sudden there was this brand play, which is not really very common in our industry. People don't lead with a brand. They don't think, well, what do I stand for? What are my values? They're like, what I'll do is I'll get a piece of equipment and I'll process it, the material. And if I process the metal, I'll get a better price and therefore the material will come to me. But Lisa's angle from also having a marketing degree was, well, let's do something different. So Lisa, you can speak to how you were able to see that in the.
Yeah, so, I came in with no preconceived ideas. I didn't even really know what the status quo was because I was from outside industry. And luckily I had, Stuart to bounce ideas off and to really explain the nuances. Every time I came up with an idea, he would challenge it. This is why it's not done like that. This is why it can't work. But equally, he was open to hearing from me, these new ideas and sort of gave me a bit of leeway to go do these experiments. So, for example, in terms of our brand positioning, our logo was like a smiling sort of infinity sign, which isn't a typical logo. It wasn't green. A lot of, in the recycling industry, people use green. And we were known for paying top prices, for being friendly, for being approachable. It was a really slick experience when you would come in there. We would treat it like, a McDonald's drive-through. That was the goal. You're in and you're out, and it's a very consistent experience no matter who serves you. A lot of process and systems in there. And, another thing that we did was advertise our prices, which Stu thought was a crazy thing to do, because he said, if we tell the market what we're paying, all our competitors are going to do is they're going to offer more. And I said, well, we're going to build a following in social media. And my question to you is,
they won't
even if
know.
they did realize, who they're going to tell if they're not building a following in social media? Who are they going to tell? You cannot sell a secret, right? And so he let me run with this crazy idea. And I think that was really pivotal to our early success, because people saw these prices, which we had the ability to pay because Stu was selling to, all the big agents and brokers, etc. And, we could tell people about it really consistently, really easily. And so, just taking different, not business as usual approaches to brand and marketing really helped separate us from our competitors, if nowhere else other than in the minds of, the people who had to scrap.
Right. But when you moved to New Zealand, you already had the idea to create this company, or you had no jobs, no nothing, then you get a job, or how was it?
So we were accidental entrepreneurs. Yeah, totally accidental entrepreneurs. So Stu was working for another metal recycler and just not enjoying it for whatever reasons. And I was tired of hearing him complain. I was working in another role, which was sort of not quite in my wheelhouse, not as exciting as the type of work I was doing before in South Africa. And so, it just kind of seemed like, we'd made some choices and got some jobs and we tried it out. And it just, wasn't that fulfilling life we were looking for. And we felt like, the people of New Zealand deserve better than what's out there at the moment, because it's quite a small market and there's, quite a low concentration of exporters. It's quite easy to take big margins and not pay really, decent prices for scrap. And so, we figured we could set out to change that. And I think we did, love.
Yeah, we took a large chunk of the market share. Very, very, very. So we had a great.
And what happened with that company? Because I think Buddy is a totally different company, a totally different approach, right?
Yeah. So that company is still going. It's here locally in Auckland. We had an exit out of there about 2 years ago. Not a great one for us. But we've left that company completely. And in order to start this tech company, we separated.
What was those challenges that you saw on the market that you can, you say, hey, here we have an opportunity, we can be different. How was it that? I want to understand very well, because coming from South Africa, for sure you have a different input to put into the New Zealand. What was that input?
Lisa, I want to jump in, but I'm going to bring you in because it was all your input, really. But what was crazy was I wouldn't have known about these pain points if I wasn't married to Lisa. So she's in the business, and every time I'm doing something, she's like, well, that's really good. Why don't you do it a better way? I'm like, well, there is no other way.
I would say stupid, love.
Okay. So you're a dinosaur.
Men talking.
Yeah, exactly. So there are better ways. There's got to be better ways. And I was like, there's no better ways. This is already advanced. Like, we're using WhatsApp. We used to use emails, and before that, like, WhatsApp is amazing. Like, this is great for us. And, it's 7 o'clock at night. We're having dinner and I'm trading. At the boys' sports on a Saturday because we're a day ahead. It's Friday with the rest of the world. I'm trading. Like,
Right.
I'm constantly on the phone. And then I complete a trade and I've now got to pick up the phone and phone my admin team. Or now I've got to send an email and make sure not to make a mistake there. And there was just, and Lisa, you said to me, what happens if you get hit by a bus? Like, we don't know what you're working because WhatsApp, there's no saved data for it. And some of the other stuff was I couldn't train somebody else to do what I was doing. Remember, so when I was in South Africa, before I ran that whole company, I actually ran the whole metal recycling part of that company. I was head of global trade. So that was really our edge. So I kept that really close to my chest. And I felt that I couldn't train somebody else because how am I going to monitor what they're actually doing? I don't know what they're doing. There's no data if they're on WhatsApp. So I tell somebody, I need you to offer this to 5 people every single day. Or every time you're selling it, you need to offer it to 5 people around the world. How do I know who's actually doing that? And because I'm a bit of a control freak and realized that was really that and brand was our edge, I kept that for myself, which just meant trying to run the company and do all the trading was really a 3 people's job at the same time, kind of thing. But Lisa, you can say, talk about what you saw on your side.
Yeah, so I think, the trading part, absolutely, that is a part of it, being able to, put your offer out very efficiently to multiple buyers across the globe to get different prices in different markets for the same commodity. Absolutely. But really, trading is a team sport. The back office now need to know all that information, right? They are the ones who are either coordinating with the counterparties, often potentially booking the freight, coordinating with the yard to make sure that the materials are getting out by the latest shipping date, that you're putting in the container what was promised, that all the information you need to know to meet the buyer's requirements. And so, even though there might be some, you can use WhatsApp and you can use Excel and you can use email, you can use two-way radios, whiteboards, pieces of paper, you're not actually generating any data as an organization. And data is really valuable, especially with the onset of AI now and the rise of AI, the ability to actually not just use gut feel. And I'm all for gut feel. There's a lot of value, especially people in this industry, 3rd generation, been doing it, were born scrappy.
Right.
They have a really strong intuition because it's based on all those decades of experience. But there's lots of people in this industry, not just those people. And, they're also acting on intuition. So if we can give people data, around loading, every time so-and-so loads a container, we're getting the wrong stuff in there. Hold on, maybe we need to train that guy, because it's other guys who are packing the same commodity who are not getting claims, for example. Or, there's so many examples when it comes to that. And just the interaction between, the trader, the admin or back office and the yard, coordinating that in a really seamless way, I felt was a huge opportunity because that was where Stu was spending his time, and it didn't feel like the highest and best use of his time, picking up phones, sending emails, handing papers, writing on whiteboards. It felt like he was just repeating the same thing, as opposed to just doing it once.
The organization does repeat themselves many times. So if you take just, for example, loading instructions, photo requirements for this container or the shipment, that's got to get told from the buyer to the trader, from the trader to the back office, from the back office into the yard at a stage. And it's how you're sending that information. Sometimes, as Lisa says, it's on a whiteboard, sometimes on a piece of paper, sometimes it's an email, other times it's a phone call. And it depends on how people like to get their information. So some guys in the yard, they don't want to get an email because they've now got to go search through the email where they're needing to do this. And traders at 11 o'clock at night have to send emails to get this information across. There are ways that you can simplify that instead of having to touch it 4 times. Lisa would always go, why are you're all doing the same thing. You're just passing it on to the next person. but in a different way. So I send it on an email, or the trader sends it on a WhatsApp. I send it on an email. My back office sends it to the yard on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard or whatever it might be. It's like, why are you all having to do this so many times? You should just enter it once,
Right.
and everybody should be able to view it. There was those sort of things that Lisa would frustrate Lisa.
It's the duplication of effort, but it's also the ability to get the right people, the right information at the time that they need it. So they don't need to know about the loading plan at 11 o'clock at night when Stu's maybe doing a trade. They need to know on the day or the day before, or maybe even a week out, that when they're going to pack it, right? That's when they need to know about when they take the photos and, how they should pack the container, etc. So, it's really powerful when you have data. You can manage it in such a way that, you're delivering it at the best possible time.
Yeah,
Lisa
definitely.
also touched on something important, right? Claims are a real thing in our industry. We don't sell widget. We're selling, a gray spec. It's a spec that all different parts of the world and all different suppliers sell a different gray. And that's all good and well. But really, when there's a claim at the end, we don't put that anywhere. So there's no data that is stored that says that this buyer often claims, or this buyer previously claimed that, or let's turn it around. This guy who loads this material in our yard, Lisa touched on it earlier, he's averaging 1.5% claims for all the aluminum that he's. Now, when I compare him, let's call him Charles, and I compare him to Jose is getting 0 claims. They're packing the same material, but there's an issue now with one of your guys that are packing. He's either not trained, he's got his other issues, there's something else going on. You need to call him in and have a discussion. Currently, I don't know of any metal recycler in the world that has that sort of data. And that's where Lisa, bringing a different background and having this knowledge that brings it into the metal recycling industry, changed the game for me to be able to see that, hold on, there should be a better way. We deserve a better way. Why is it not out there? But no tech people can create this because we are so niche. Lisa, I mean, you can explain like how
it's
you
not just it's not as niche, it's that it's nuanced. So like you say, we're not selling widgets. There's grades, there's variability within the grades. Even just packing the material or processing the material depends what equipment you have. Not all balers are created equal, for example. How big are your bales? Can they fit in the mouth of the furnace? There's just so much. Even the language that's used in the industry is different to other industries, even just, primary metals, for example. It's a different language. We don't talk about like the length necessarily. Obviously, in some grades you do, but you're not going to talk about the length of copper wire, And so it requires a really bespoke solution that is developed within the industry, not from an external player that doesn't quite understand the lived experience, the language, the nuance. And so, I think, between Stu and myself, his breadth and depth of experience in the industry and me having had those 5 or 6 years, building a scrap business, a metal recycling business and growing it, I have enough of that understanding as well for us to, really help this industry empower their teams to do their best work and improve their outcomes.
Right. And I like your story because I am very familiar with that type of a story. I'm from Colombia. I came to the US almost like 8 years ago, and I had no knowledge about the aluminum recycling industry. I used to have my own company back in Colombia, and I was a consultant for different type of companies, mostly on the steel mills, and I used to do a lot of different projects and everything. But when I came here, for me was, first of all, I thought that my English was very, very good, and it wasn't, was very bad, very, very bad. And what I used to do when I used to make some phone calls, I used to use Google Translate, and I tried to figure out what are going to be those questions that the customer can make to me, right? And I write it down, all the answers and everything, and I was like reading everything. And then I put a lot of different resources to make a different input from my experience into the US. And for me, listening to you guys is like, oh, wow, I was not the only guy trying to, succeed in a different country. Now, with all that data that you collect, and after you went out of your company, how you use that data and how your body company started.
So just to be clear, we didn't have that data in our old company. These were the
okay.
frustrations that were frustrating
got it.
Lisa, who was my business partner in the company, who would always see, but you're dealing with another claim. How do we know that this isn't this guy's 10th claim in a row? Or how do we know that this guy loading isn't always giving us claims, or et cetera, et cetera? So these were the frustrations that Lisa could see because she was from another industry. We did have really good systems in place, but not to the level of what I guess we've now created or spent the last almost 2 years trying to solve.
I guess
So
there
not-
wasn't a strong enough case in terms of the return on capital required to build this type of system for one metal recycling company. They wouldn't, we would just be sinking money into it. It needs the volume to run through it for the investment to make sense. And so
Right.
we had all these ideas that we didn't execute on. We did have excellent data on other things. And we did have a lot of bespoke systems that we built, which is very helpful going through the process of building all of those. In Buddy, we learned a lot of things. You pay school fees as well, and so we learned a lot of that through building software for that business.
Right.
And then
go ahead.
no, so you were saying about what data was there and how we brought it, Buddy. I guess it was that experience of the combination of Lisa and I, up at night talking about these things and how could we do things differently. And as Lisa said, well, it's not going to make sense to spend, we're at $2 million. It's not going to make sense to spend $2 million on a system for one metal recycle. We need to build something to change their entire industry, to make the whole industry more efficient, to help the industry, to give the metal recyclers more time so they have this efficiency, they have this data, and it actually gives them more time to do other things even better. Even if it's spending more time with their family, right? I mean, one of the big things in the beginning was if they can do trading in a couple of clicks of a button and all that information goes to their back office instead of them spending hours doing it, well, they don't have to do more work. They might be able to spend quality time at the dinner table with their family.
Right. And I can imagine that Buddy is like an application or an app that can take out the middleman from the transaction and just straightforward from the buyer and the seller, right? Something like that?
No, not
So
really.
it's interesting. It's not a disintermediation play, right? So initially, when thinking about it, one might think, let's just completely disintermediate and take out the middleman.
Right.
But the reality is that traders and brokers or agents, they all have a role to play in the industry. And depending on the metal recycler, they might have at one stage a strong balance sheet and they're happy to sell, good cash flow, free cash flow, and they're happy to sell, CIF, for example, CIF. But there might be the same recycler or another recycler, the same recycler at another point in time of the business, and they want to sell FAS and they want to get paid up front, for example. And so there's different players and they all bring value to the metal recycling exporters or sellers at different points in time or for different businesses. And so they all actually have a role to play. And we're actually just helping people build trust and build relationships more efficiently and more effectively, and in a way that that information resides in the company, not in pockets with different individuals who may leave tomorrow.
It's not just we haven't built an app. We've built an end-to-end trading platform. So it only starts with the first time you want to put up a listing, you've got something to sell, you load it up, a couple clicks of a button, you load a picture or two, and say, for example, you're selling aluminum grade, whatever it might be. Let's just go cans.
Right.
And you're selling some cans or some can bales. And that then goes out to the buyers on the other side of the marketplace. So we've got buyers. So it's a closed ecosystem of trust. So we've got buyers and sellers, and every single one of them have been vetted by us. It's not a free for all. Nobody can download the app. You have to go through be able to download the app. And Recycler loads up something for sale. And that then goes out to the other buyers on the other side. Our algorithm will match that commodity with the buyers that buy that material. So any buyers of those cans will be able to then see that. The seller then sees 10, 15, however many offers he's got on one screen. He can then go share it, or he can and
you're getting that interference.
Immediately when that trade is concluded, it goes.
Yeah, you're cutting off a little bit.
Yeah, your line's so bad we can't we can't hear anything at all. We didn't hear any of that.
But that's fine. So what I understand is you built a platform that allow people to exchange different type of materials, and you, I can imagine, are making money out of the transactions, right?
Yeah. So basically what we've done is, our sort of philosophy is the man with the metal is king, right? So the sellers have the recycled metal. There's an insatiable demand for recycled metal as an input to production. And so, we figured that, it makes sense to monetize by charging the buyer, but the buyer only gets charged if they actually make a purchase, right, on the platform. Right. And so it's kind of, if you use it, you pay, right? But if you putting your listings up there or you weren't successful in a bid, well, then it's not going to cost you.
Right. And at this point, how is the development of this platform comparing to when we met at the ISRI show? I mean, it's getting stronger. You have more, people getting in there, more transactions, more globally, because I can imagine that you two are traveling a lot, right? Because you want to make this happen. And do you see any future also in the US market? Because it's huge.
I'm just checking. I don't have any delays at the moment. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. So we're actually moving our family to Austin, Texas next month. So we've got a backlog of metal recyclers that are looking to onboard. And in order to do that, I have to vet every single customer in person, which means I go to that metal recycler, I spend the day there. I do all checks, making sure that they're reputable, reliable, and they fit what we're looking for.
Right.
And I can't do that from New Zealand, quite obviously. I've spent 12 of the last 15 or 16 weeks in the US. So we've decided to shift the whole family over there. So the kids start school in end of August, and we'll be in Austin, Texas. So I'll have the ability to get to all the recyclers that are looking to come on at the moment. We have users at the moment. We have trades. We have over 20 sellers at the moment on it. We've got over 40 buyers on the other side. And we're having trades almost on a daily basis at the moment. Listings every single day going up. And people still have the ability to not have to sell it on the platform, so they're able to put it up there, and if they get a better price domestically, then they're able to sell it domestically or whatever might happen. So there's a lot of action at the moment happening on the platform, and we're still in the building phase and iteration. So we speaking to our users every single day, making sure that every different feature is beneficial and it is what they want, and what's coming up at a later stage in the roadmap is also something that they feel will be.
How do you control?
We actually release.
Go ahead.
We release to the App Store and into our web app weekly. So every week we're releasing, either new features or refinements to existing features. So the product's changing on a weekly basis and growing and improving.
Who is building this software and everything? Because it's not you guys, right?
Not us personally, but we've got a team and they're fantastic. They've worked on products from, buy now, pay later platforms like Afterpay to dating apps to fintech apps. So there's a lot of deep experience there in terms of building and launching new app. And so, we've got a team of 7 who are building this for us.
How do you control
building it with us?
How do you control, for example, that the people that wants to sell something is real and the material is real and the transaction is not going to be some scam or something like that?
Well, that really comes in from my vetting process, getting referrals, finding and speaking to other buyers that have bought from before. But it's actually both sides, right? I mean, you've got to make sure that you actually do get paid as well. So it's this ecosystem of trust. We've got a buyer on our platform from Dubai who sat me down one day. They were a huge trader, and they sat me down one day and they said, I just want you to know that if there's any bad actors, even though the contract is between these two parties, the buyer and the seller, and we don't participate in that, it's going to be a reflection on Buddy. So whatever you do, make sure you spend your time checking you're bringing on the right parties. Don't try and grow for the sake of growth, because you might grow very quickly, but just as quick as you grow, you can plummet to the ground. So they said sustainable growth, make sure every person you're bringing on is a reputable, reliable supplier, and make sure your buyers are equally strong.
Nice. What is the next step for Buddy?
I've got a million steps. I'm the guy who's like, let's go there. We got all these sort of plans. I guess from where we are at the moment, we're just excited. The Yard app The Yard app piece of it is all coming out now into the market. So what that is the ability for the guys in the yard to see what needs to be packed. When they click on a container to be packed, it gives them the details, how many photos they need to take. They take the photos in the app. It's date and time stamped, so no more digital cameras. They can communicate with the yard in that app. You follow an operating process, so they know exactly what the process is. They mark who the buyer was as an example. Who the loader is. So now we know, like I said earlier, if which of the guys loading the containers are you getting claims from. So that's really exciting because that gets released in the next few weeks. And after that, for me, it's getting to the US and spending more time in front of metal recyclers and just getting a lot more action in the platform.
Lisa, what would you have said? Are the kids involved in the situation? I mean, the company or not yet?
Oh, it's funny. So we've got a 9-year-old and an almost 5-year-old. And I asked him the other day, the almost 5-year-old, what does he want to be when he's big? What does he want to do? So he said, I'm going to work at Buddy's. Told me.
Oh,
so nice. I said, oh, cool. Okay. Do you know what we do at Buddy? So he said, not sure. It's an app, right? So I said, yeah, it's an app. So he said, yeah, I'll work there. And then he turns to his brother and he says, what are you going to do when you're big? And his brother said, I'm going to work at Buddy too. And my youngest said, oh, cool. Maybe I'll see you there. So they're hyper aware of what's going on. I mean, they were on the journey with us in building the metal recycling company. When I had my youngest, he actually came to the office with me until he was about 10 months old. And they get involved. They see us looking at things. My eldest son is very interested in the content creation side of the business and the coding side of the business. So he's busy teaching himself Canva, and he's signed up for Code Monkey. So he's learning to code. And so they're involved to the degree they're excited. They walk around with their Buddy caps and their Buddy t-shirts, and they're really proud to say, my parents have an app for recycling. We would love nothing more than to bring them into the business one day. They'll be like, yep, we're second generation. So
definitely be ready to speak a lot of Spanish in Austin.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we're excited. Right. I'm going to download Duolingo. I'm going to start Spanish on there. It's a good idea.
You better do it.
Yeah.
And now let me know about your podcast, Born Scrappy, right? What is the approach? What is the intention? I saw some of the episodes. I really like those. It's something that you want to build as a personal brand, or is something that is helping you to increase body, let's say, exposure out there?
It started off as a project before we even knew that we were going on the Buddy journey. Was we had our exit from a previous metal recycling company, and it was what we were going to do next. Lisa had started working as head of go-to-market at a friend's company, and we were looking at, I had been in recycling now for 27 years in metal recycling. So what were we going to do next in the space? But really, it was quite weird because I'd been speaking to the same people globally almost every single day. Right? When you're trading and you're selling material, every day you're on WhatsApp talking to them. And Lisa, I said, you kind of like lose a bit of yourself. And I said, like, Lisa, how am I going to stay relevant? And like, how am I going to still be a part of this industry? And like, I can't phone these people and chat to them because I don't trade with them. And Lisa said, well, why don't you interview them? Like, let's get their stories and let's find out from them, what have they done? How can we learn from their mistakes? And what about the young traders coming through, the next generation, right? They're all going to have to go through the same things and make the same mistakes. Well, wouldn't it be great to just know that that's normal, or just know what's around the next corner? You're going to stuff up. You're going to make this mistake, and markets are going to crash. They're not only going to climb, and hearing it through stories. So we kind of did the first season as friends that I've dealt with for a very long time. Let's see how that went. And the feedback we got was just incredible. Like on the DM side, a lot of junior traders, it was just what we were looking for, right? Even like most experienced traders were like, this is great. And it's great to know that after 50 years, I'm not the only one who went through these things. And I went to the BIR, I think it was in Abu Dhabi. And, after having been there for 5 or 10 minutes, I had at least, 3-4 people come up to me and say, keep going. This is really cool. It's really helpful. Anytime there's a junior trader that they hang out with, or what are they saying? You must listen to this to kind of get you a little of a step ahead. And that just kind of carried on growing. Obviously, then we had decided it doesn't make us any money. So there's no income. You know this. There's no income in the podcast side of things. Well, we haven't structured it like that. So it was just a project for us. And we're now into season 3, and it's just become like a lot of fun. Like, I love hanging out with people. I love chatting to you now. Like, this is my happy place. So, if I can be doing this on a weekly basis, I'm in a good place.
Nice. And for you, Lisa, you have any involved? And are you involved in the podcast?
I only do
so
the
what
1
actually
hour of
happened-
interview. She does everything else. I just chat.
So when we spoke about it, Stuart said, "Don't worry, love, I've got this. I'm going to do all the research and I'm going to do this all by myself." And I said, "That's fantastic. Go, you good thing, go." And he then lined up all these interviews, and he was about to record, and he was like, "Oh." So I figured out the right tech stack for him, helped him get set up in the room, and I do a lot of the post-production of the podcast. I'm Stuart's human filter, so just
I've been known
take
to
out
sometimes tell jokes that maybe shouldn't be repeated.
And so I clean it up real nice, and I do all the sort of shorts for socials and all that kind of stuff. So he does the scrap specific stuff, and I do, I guess, the marketing side of it.
Nice. So, guys, I think this episode was very amazing. I really appreciate the time. I want you to give me 5 more minutes on backstage, because I want to propose you a business, because seeing everything that you're doing and knowing what is happening in the US, I want just to share some ideas. But anyway, guys, I really appreciate it. It was super fun for me to get to know you better. I think I already know you a little bit from the episodes, and seeing you guys talking with a different kind of people. I think this needs to keep moving forward, because it's the way that we can share with the people what is happening out there. And as you just said, how we can not go through the same pain that people already went through it, right? And how we can make this industry better, because at the end, that's what we want to do.
Exactly right. It's exactly right.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for being here with us. I think people will love it. And I think, or hopefully this is not it's the first time, but it's not going to be the last one for sure. Because I want
That's
to
for sure.
have another episode after some months that you are living here in the US. And I want to hear about your experience and what is going on, and about Buddy just growing and blowing up the business, because I know you will do it. So thank you again for being here with us, and I really appreciate it.
Dirty Scrap Podcast.